Introducing the Marauder versus
Digital Realms Interactive.
I don't understand how this could be a regular enemy and it's like a boss. Got him. Ah! Oh my god! Keeps blocking. Cheesing! He keeps cheesing! It's only a regular guy. Got him.
Finish him!
Welcome to Digital Realms Interactive.
coming to ya with my first retrospective review. Doom Eternal versus Doom 2016. It's going down.
I was inspired heavily by Doom and horror movies to start terrorizing my family with random pranks.
Oh, Terrain, stop! Terrain, scary, stop! Watch out!
To really capture the essence of Doom, we gotta go back to the past. Reveal the roots of the Doom franchise. The 90s. Yes, I was alive during that time. Don't hate, I'm not old. Wolfenstein 3D, released in 1992, was a huge technological achievement. Developed by id Software, the title was one of the early pioneers of the first-person shooter genre and helped establish techniques for this new style of game design, as well as popularize FPSs. Four key members of the development team, John Carmack, John Romero, Adrian Carmack, and Tom Hall, began development of Wolfenstein 3D in 1991. John Romero had the idea to remake the classic hit game Castle Wolfenstein that was released by Muse Software in 1981. The game was developed by a single programmer. His name was Silas Warner, described as being a towering intellectual. Rather than making a game that was more action-based, that was super popular in the early 80s, he went for a more stealthy approach. The goal of the game was to escape the castle, only being armed with 10 bullets. Developed on the Apple II computer, it was one of the first stealth games as well as one of the first to feature digital voice. The game was a lot more complex of games of that era, so naturally was a huge success. My thoughts make sense, you could keep your pennies. Remaking this game was a no-brainer. However, in 1992, 3D accelerators did not exist. John Carmack worked on a game engine that was 2D based but could simulate 3D graphics using a new technique called raycasting. This was not heavy on the CPU and could result in fast gameplay. However, there were many limitations, like no inclusion of stairs, levels could not exist on top of one another, yet the results were mind-boggling. The game was a huge success. John Carmack remained in the lab, ready and willing to enhance the game engine with something legendary. John Carmack's new game engine resulted in a game title called Doom, which set itself apart with fast visuals and non-linear gameplay. Released in 1993, loosely influenced by the Dungeons & Dragons series, it would go on to be the standard as far as features to be inserted in any FPS game for several years to come. The game engine finally supported the inclusion of stairs, moving platforms, the ability to have a second floor, advanced texture mapping. Enemies can be seen through multiple angles, several different enemy types. Success breeds biters, and the 90s gave way to an avalanche of Doom clones that were released. This was somewhat unfair because any FPS game that was released was labeled a Doom clone in the 90s. The game was so popular, released via shareware in the beginning, between 15 to 20 million people within the first 2 years played Doom. Even was spoofed. A game called PO'd did that. Nothing beats avoiding butts and dodging farts. Let's just say I was blown away. The original is king, and for a time, nothing could outdo its popularity. It was estimated in 1995 that Doom was installed in more computers than even Windows 95. With the arrival of the next-gen systems, rendering in real-time 3D became more of a standard. This resulted in id Software releasing Doom 64 exclusively for the Nintendo 64. It was developed on an advanced version of the Doom engine and still featured 2D sprites for its enemies. This felt dated next to id Software's release of Quake, which was fully 3D. Despite this, it was a great game with more complex level design, more tight corridors, and overall it had a very dark and eerie tone to it. Due to the Nintendo 64's somewhat limited install base, this game remains to be a hidden gem. In 2004, id Software released Doom 3, which was fully 3D, but took the series in a different direction because it focused more on horror elements by having less enemies on screen, giving Doomslayer a flashlight, and slowing down the pace of the game. It was regarded as a classic and was a breath of fresh air to the franchise. At the time of its release, besides the PC, the original OG Xbox was the only home console that could run the game. id Software had advanced the Doom engine's graphic technologies so far ahead of its time. Doom 4 is a soft reboot of the franchise, which is actually the sequel to Doom 64. Because of this fact, it ignores most events that took place in Doom 3, which was a previous reboot, but of the original series. Originally announced in 2008, due to the popularity of Medal of Honor and Call of Duty at the time, Doom took visual inspiration from these games. Focus testers and fans gave mixed reviews to its new art style. As development continued, the project started to take on an unlike Doom feel to it. This led to scrapping the entire development. The game was restarted in 2011 and revealed simply as Doom in 2014. What came out of that was an excellent game that brought Doom back to its prominence, versus its excellent sequel, Doom Eternal. Now you know the history, let's get down to business. The first game to utilize the id Tech 6 engine reveals realistic visuals with a dark tone, high-resolution fire effects, various particle effects, a locked smooth 60 FPS. The detail of the levels always tells a story if you take out the time to observe. Great fog effects throughout. Dynamic explosions. Enemies' limbs can be dismembered. On the other hand, Doom Eternal utilizes the id Tech 7 engine that was released in 2020. Enemies' body dismember a much higher detail. The color palette is much more saturated and brighter in tonality. However, the explosions are less dynamic, but still impressive. Overall, Doom 2016 is a pretty dope visual package with more dynamic lighting, but this could be attributed to the fact that a lot of the environments do take place on the interior. The only real drawback is that the environments rely heavily on Doom tropes and don't go outside of the box on expanding the Doom universe. Doom Eternal completely trumps this by having a wider range of drastically different environments. Even the backdrops are highly detailed. The actual fire animations are way more elaborate. Overall, Doom Eternal is a much more complete and varied graphical showpiece of the id Tech engine. The Doom series is known for its gore, and death animations are nothing short of spectacular. Glory kills are satisfying and varied. Doom Eternal ups the ante with more visceral death animations, highlighted with bright red blood splatter. Simply put it, these animations are next level, no cap. More flesh can be shot off the enemies, and this signifies the enemy getting hurt.
Finish him!
With over-the-top glory kills. Doom is not a mindless shooter after all. It does require the player to find card keys, light platforming, challenging combat, once the Doomslayer unlocks an area, the main gameplay is that of an arena shooter. Exploration is included as well. There is a story, and what I like about it is you can either listen to it or simply avoid it. You can also find several upgrades throughout. Easter eggs are hidden in not so obvious places. I wonder where this door goes. Looks kind of familiar though. Oh snap, this is for me? Thanks. At its heart, the combat is king, and this is the reason why people play Doom. Doom Eternal takes what worked in the original and runs with it. Doomslayer is much more mobile with the addition of the dash. He can also vault off certain objects. There are environmental hazards that can benefit the player. More complex puzzles to get hidden items. More advanced platforming. Some can be very inventive, and some could be beyond frustrating. Exploration is rewarded with secrets. This time around, you must target enemies' weak points in order to defeat them. The combat is more intense and the variety of enemies are way more challenging. You cannot just spam the buttons. You must constantly change weapons and use the one that is most effective on said enemy. Speaking of challenges, this enemy was the most annoying. And he definitely gave me a problem.
Cheesing! He keeps cheesing!
His inclusion completely breaks the core rules of Doom. First of all, he's way too fast and has way too many different types of attacks. There's just no way the Slayer is mobile enough to catch him. Completely broke the game. Then it dawned on me, maybe I gotta change my strategy. I found that he has points where he stops attacking. He has weak points. He has openings. Once I found that, I realized he is a great addition. This just adds to the complexity of Doom. And in the end, it works. I really do miss the rune trials. They were great because they did break up the gameplay by presenting secret challenges. Runes are now simply upgrades that you find in the environment. However, the inclusion of the Slayer Gates are great additions because they are high-octane combat challenges that break up the gameplay loop. Also, by doing these combat challenges, this is a sure way to get your combat skills up. The same goes for the secret encounters. My favorite mode, the arcade mode, does not make a return though. I'm an old school gamer after all. I love outdoing high scores. It's always been me. Hence the word arcade. In Doom 2016, ammo is plentiful and using the chainsaw was only as a last resort. In Doom Eternal, you must constantly switch weapons because the ammo is limited and the use of a chainsaw is now key to survival. The melee attack seems to have no damage. This gameplay tweak could be a little bit annoying when you low on health, you're trying to hit a fool and you're like, what? It ain't happening. I don't understand this because the Doom Slayer can burst through walls. I guess you have to power up the blood punch. There are great combat additions like the ability to freeze an enemy. And of course, set the enemy ablaze. The super shotgun has a highly useful grapple hook. The chain gun has my favorite, a shield. The weak pistol of Doom 2016 has been replaced finally with the combat shotgun. There were several design changes, but I won't go through everything because this video is going to be longer than Lord of the Rings, so we're not going to do that right now. Just take my word for it, Doom Eternal does have an edge when it comes to upgrading the weapons. There's also a large hub area called the Doom Fortress, where you can find missions, find secrets, and find upgrades. This is probably one of my favorite hub areas of any game that I played in a long time. Because the development cycle was so long, it really shows. They took so much care in releasing this title. They gave so much back to the fans when they did release it. It is still one of the greatest shooters of our day. Yet Doom Eternal does advance on things that were great about Doom 2016 and takes it way further. Just the movement alone is so swift and smooth and dynamic that it's hard to go back to the older game. Targeting enemies' weak points is probably the most significant drastic change in gameplay. And while certain platform sections can be frustrating, it is a game after all, so I'm up for the challenge. Its core, the combat, is more strategic and challenging. This equals way more fun. So I gotta give it up for id Software to bring in the franchise back with a vengeance. Doom 2016 definitely got a lot of things right, but Doom Eternal is the most complete and realized game package of the series. At the time of this recording, I would go on to say Doom Eternal is absolutely the best Doom game ever. I'll be looking forward to id Software outdoing this one. Thanks for watching and entering the vibe. Please hit me with a like and share. If you're feeling my content, please subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you can be alerted when a new video drops. This all helps the channel, and I really appreciate the support. Peace and love.